We're ready? Good morning, Chair and board members.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
We'd like to start the meeting today by adopting, well, first of all, let's allow members of the public first to provide public comment. We will start with Mr. McNamara, who wishes to provide public comment on item number 2. Mr. McNamara?
Yes, good morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to make a quick comment on item number 2 and then read a statement to the board. Item number 2 deals with section 8. And I kind of get a flashback when I see section 8 references. Many decades ago, when I was discharged from the hospital after suffering a line of duty injury as a uniformed police officer, I asked NYCHA for assistance with housing since I lived in a walk-up apartment in Queens, and they gave me a application for a section 8 apartment 2 blocks from where I had been shot. So that was the beginning of the end of my positive relationship with NYCHA. For a long time, I've been pursuing equity in terms of my treatment, and I've repeatedly communicated with NYCHA, yet received no response. That's why I'm here today. That's why I've been here on a prior occasion. I presented compelling and irrefutable facts regarding my eligibility for unlimited sick leave, and by virtue of that, eligibility for the mayor's exempt list. The NYPD produced a defective opinion suggesting I wasn't entitled to unlimited sick leave. They were not thorough. They were not prudent in crafting that opinion. NYCHA, unfortunately, relied on that misinformation and quoted the NYPD virtually verbatim in denying me support. The legal counsels for both agencies had a fiduciary responsibility to exercise care and due diligence when offering a legal opinion. I presented documentation refuting their basis, yet I remain stuck. These counsels will need to answer for their malfeasance to the New York State Bar in the near future. It's time for NYCHA to acknowledge the merits of my position in open dialogue. NYCHA administration of Joseph Christian that mistreated me decades ago was callous and engaged in subterfuge in disposing of me. Sadly, I see a similar callous attitude in the current and John Rhea administrations. NYCHA is not capital appropriations alone, as indicated in these board meeting agendas. It's people, 12,000 employees, 600,000 residents. Greg Smith of the Daily News very capably chronicles the NYCHA's apathy towards both residents and employees. His observations are not anecdotal. When I patrolled NYCHA's hallways and rooftops in the dead of night, I was an asset. When I was injured, I became a disposable asset. The organization has lost its humanity and needs to remember to whom they are responsible for and accountable to. I am among those they are responsible for. I've always taken the high road in pursuing equity with NYCHA. NYCHA cannot stay the same as they dismiss facts, impede transparency, and attempt to discourage legitimate appeals by legal maneuvering. They even go as far as to deny receipt of certified mail correspondence. I took an oath nearly 4 decades ago that I reconfirm that oath every 2 years when I have to appeal for parole hearings in the public interest. Has NYCHA kept its promise to me? The answer is no. Rest assured, I will continue to take the high road in pursuing equity, and I invite NYCHA to join me on that high road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McNamara. Our second speaker will be Michelle Burtentire. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. Okay. If you could step up to the microphone, please. The microphone is up here.
If you're able.
Yeah, if you.
Good morning.
She'll be commenting on items number 2, 4, and 5.
Hi, this is my first NYCHA meeting. I was commenting that maybe. Oh, good morning. I was commenting that maybe I was seeing as the fiscal year, and maybe renter's insurance should be required to all tenants, and that would help with the people being upset if there's another Sandy hurricane or something like that. Because it's usually like $5 price of a sandwich a month. Renters insurance. It's the hero. It's like $8 a month for renters insurance. And, that's the first agenda. Especially it's good for seniors and or disabled. And then the second thing I wanted to comment on, the education computer van, it never reached Brook Allen houses. I put agenda number 2. Can you hear me?
Can't really hear you, sorry.
Oh, I put agenda number 2 because I think it went under the coding for HUD, HUD things. Brook Allen houses usually get passed over for fun stuff like that. But we did get the Friday FDNY did come this summer and do some stuff. But it would be good if we got the education computer van.
Thank
It's
you.
3 minutes.
Are you saying you want the computer van to come to Brook Allen houses? Is that
In
what
Brook, in
you're asking?
Canarsie, yes.
That's not difficult to do.
Yeah, it's simple request.
Thank you. The digital van, that's what she's asking for.
Oh yeah, the digital van, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our third speaker will be Mr. Tyrone Ball, commenting on items number 12, 17, and 18. Mr. Ball?
What items again? I'm sorry.
12, 17, and 18.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. I apologize. I got a phone call from one of the residents. I want to discuss the plumbing in my development. I see that we have on the agenda plumbing and water renewals. Our infrastructure is old, and we have increasing gentrification going on in my development area. In the area, we're in Central Harbor, so we have a new school that's inside the development. We also have condos that are being put up, and we have infrastructure that's going on across the street on 127th Street. And I see that the lines are on the agenda list here. So is St. Nicholas slated for new plumbing, or is the plumbing infrastructure going to be upgraded?
We'll follow up. Someone will follow up with you after.
And the other thing is this. I'm seeing contracts going on. I see capital, but I see a capital doing new things, but capital isn't giving us a time schedule for anything. So is capital going to be giving a time schedule for whatever work is going to happen in development, or will we just have to wait and find out later? Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes our public comments portion, and we may proceed with the regular calendar. I'd like to start by asking the board to make a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting for Wednesday, July 27th.
I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We may proceed to the chair's report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Clicker. Thank you. It's wonderful to see you all here. I have to take a moment and just acknowledge our board member, Victor Gonzalez, who's here walking and moving with them, and we're thrilled to have him back.
Thank you.
In good health. I can attest for his stamina as we walked around Wise Towers earlier this month, and we're thrilled to see you in good health and spirit. So
Good to be back.
really great to see you. I also want to acknowledge, since we last met, that NYCHA we have hired our new EVP of Capital Projects, Deborah Goddard, who's here with us today. Deborah joins us from Boston, that city up there, with a long career in public housing at the Boston Housing Authority, as well as at the Massachusetts Housing and Community Development Agency. Someone who understands public housing, understands the challenges of managing an aging urban portfolio and working in large and complex organizations. And she has already hit the ground running, and we're thrilled to have her be part of our team. So we have a very long calendar this morning, so I want to work to keep my comments relatively short. They may be even shorter because this is not working. But we have, and I just want to note for a couple of the commentators, everything that's presented at this meeting, thank you, is online. We also have made an effort to ensure that all of NYCHA's contracts are also online, which detail both the amount, any changes to that contract, the schedule. I also want to encourage folks to check out, there are now development pages, i.e. you can look online and you can look up the St. Nicholas development, and you can look up the Brook Ellen development, and you can see both what is happening in terms of immediate, perhaps emergencies, and or work that is either happening or scheduled at the development, as well as overall demographic information about your development. So I want to encourage people to really utilize the online resources, and always welcome comments here and elsewhere. So you all are quite familiar with this framework. We are 17 months in of implementation of NextGen. It is, I think, our sort of North Star in terms of reminding people why we're doing what we're doing, to stabilize the organization, to ultimately improve what's happening in the 600,000 lives of people who will live in our public housing or through our Section 8 program. We have to rebuild our portfolio, and as we do all of those things, engaging with residents in a new and different way. There are many, many things happening throughout the organization. A couple of highlights here, which is if you recall, our vision is every community should be safe, clean, and connected. And connected can mean lots of different things. Connected can mean connected with better lighting, and I'm pleased to say we are on schedule to complete a ton of new lighting projects by the end of the calendar year, funded by the City Council, as well as some from the state funding as well. But we are also connecting our residents with greater access to technology, whether that's through the digital van. We were pleased to add another van which makes its way through a number of our developments, and we always need to augment that schedule, and hopefully can do that more and even get it out to Brook Ellen, as well as actually providing and investing in the men and women who work for the authority. We are changing the way we do business, and that means being more efficient with our time. It means reducing paper. So we're actually, by the end of this year, all of our maintenance and most of our skilled trade workers will be utilizing handhelds to open and close work tickets, which will also allow us to close those tickets faster, also be able to track when something is closed, and then also be able to ask the residents if the work was done to their satisfaction. So again, a huge step for us towards being better and joining the 21st century. So when we talk about technology, it is not only about connecting residents, it's about investing in our employees, ultimately to make the agency be a more responsive landlord. Our app continues to be incredibly popular for everyone who residents can download the app. Free Android, iPhone users. I don't remember the count. I think I don't see IT here, but I know we're over. There we are. We're over how many?
Over 30,000 people have downloaded the app.
Great. Over 30,000 residents downloading the app and counting. So really want to encourage more and more people to do that. You can get alerts about issues with your development. You can get alerts generally about weather alerts. You can get information. You can schedule your work in your apartment per your schedule as opposed to others, and really putting information at the hands of our most important stakeholders, our residents. A ton of work happening in rebuilding our portfolio. We continue to move forward with our Sandy Rebuilding and Resiliency Program, breaking ground at Coney Island, breaking ground at Astoria Houses, in permanent construction. As you know, there was a whole period sort of immediately following the storm to just to get things operational again. What's happening now is the actual permanent construction, moving systems to higher ground, beginning to redo some of the exteriors of the buildings, putting in new doors, lighting, security measures, all things that make our communities and our residents safer in what will certainly be a century of more and intensive weather events. And this continues. And another very important commitment that this administration made, even though we were not required to, is that our federal FEMA dollars is subject to Section 3. And so we have, we've already, we continue to do a ton of outreach to residents in the affected developments to get people trained, and get people in the pipeline for permanent, for construction and permanent jobs and employment opportunities as a result of this work. As I mentioned, a ton of work, really. Kudos to our capital and ops team that are working closely with our vendors to get new lighting installed throughout the city. I was at Ingersoll the other evening, and those those are about to literally come on, and more and more will be completed by the end of this year. Actually, we can update this and say Queensbridge is actually done, and there is a lot of work that's happening that is implementing the mayor's promise of dedicating $300 million to the authority over 3 years to replace roofs at a number of our developments. That's construction that's underway. There's a lot of shedding up around the city, but it's because we have several hundreds of millions of dollars of work happening throughout the city. We continue, as I said, to do all of this because we are more than bricks and mortar. We are communities. We are and communities of people, and so we are really pleased to announce that NYCHA received a federal announcement that we will open a new Jobs Plus program at the Penn Wharton development in Brooklyn. This is Jobs Plus is a nationally recognized model that connects residents to the services and education that they need, ultimately leading them to jobs. There's a whole study sort of indicating the effectiveness of that model. We have worked really closely with our city partners in co-locating these Job Plus sites at NYCHA development. So really excited that this is just got this news last week. And again, a ton of work happening to connect residents to pre-apprenticeship programs as well as other employment programs throughout our portfolio. So this is really fun. So NYCID, I hope you all have one. If you are residents of New York City, you have one, Commissioner Byrd. This is probably the easiest thing that I've done here at the Housing Authority, which is sign up for an NYCID. It's something that we're working very closely with the mayor's office to make sure that NYCHA residents know about this. It is free, it is simple, and essentially unlocks the city to our residents. Something like 40 to 50 different cultural and arts institutions across the city are literally free with when you present this ID. So we are doing pop-up IDs, pop-up ID sites throughout our developments. I think a couple weeks ago, we had already signed up over 200 NYCHA residents and counting. And we're doing one here for NYCHA employees as well, because as we know, a third of our employees are residents, so another opportunity to connect residents to services here in the city. Always great to be acknowledged by your peers for doing good work. And not only are we seeking to be a better landlord, we are seeking to be a better agency in terms of how we steward the resources, the public resources that we are in charge of. Our finance department was acknowledged by the we received the Construction Management Award for bringing several projects in on time and under budget, my two favorite words. And so this is an acknowledgement of some of that activity, as well as I think there's some folks that are going to be acknowledged next month by NARO and the National Affordable Housing Conference for our digital van activity and lots of other things. So people are starting to notice, and it's a good thing. It's not good enough, but it's a good thing. So we are very busy, and we are preparing not only for the start of heating season, which is Saturday. And so there are lots of things that are affecting all parts of the agency. And I will turn it over. First, I will ask if there are any questions, and then I'll turn it over to the GM to talk more about some of the operational initiatives. Great. Okay, GM.
Thanks, Derek. Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to share with you some of the activities around our key performance indicators for the month of August. And also kind of as following up on the chair's comment to give you a quick update on where we are with heat and hot water this season, which begins on Saturday. The key performance indicators will be looking again at our financial health, work orders, vacancies, and customer satisfaction. On rent collection, in August, the rent collection decreased from 73.9% from 74.3% in July. The cumulative rent collection rate for the past 12 months was 95%. So again, we look at rent collection in a variety of different ways. One is on a 12-month basis, that which we collect versus bill versus that which we collect, versus all of the past that's due compared to what we collect. So when you look at the two major indicators, our monthly collection rate reflects all that has been due to us and what are we collecting. That is a 73.9%. It is down from 74.3 from the month before. However, it is up from what it was a year ago, slightly. On the TARS indicator, that is looking at what we did not collect over what we have billed. It's a form of it's a performance goal that HUD looks at, and in response to this to the decrease in rent collection, we've now looked at individual targets for each site. For example, at a senior development, it could be that the target could be pretty high to begin with. Seniors pay rent on a regular basis, so that target could be different than it would be from a very difficult family site, for example. Each site was going to get an individualized targeted rent goal, and we'll be looking at part of the scorecards that we look at the individual performances. So we'll be in a situation to grade management of the collection rate per site in a little bit better way. We continue to also do like the computer-aided statistical analysis, the CompStats. We have something internally where we have a stat in which the property managers are brought into the large ceremony room at 90 Church Street, in which the performances of the agencies are looked at in a very sort of nuanced and granular way. I was trying to get best practices of what the managers are doing good and how do we replicate that, and the managers that have some challenges, how can we support them? And work order overview. For August, we're at 144,298 overall. It is actually down from 146,937, which is the first time we've actually had a decrease in a while. And we think that we are now going to be tackling some long-term paint and long-term tile tickets that the expectation is that we'll be continuing to have this kind of downward trend for a while. Just to kind of share with the board and the public the scale of the work we do, annually, we close 2.44 million work orders a year. That's about 203,000 per month, 46,000 per week, and about 6,600 per day. Just to put a scale of the work that we do here. On emergency work orders are a high priority. We have a 24-hour response to things like no heater, hot, no water, gas outages, electrical outages, etc. In August, the average time to resolve these agencies was 9.8 hours within our 24-hour target. The interesting thing, if you look at the trending, though, a lot of the 24 hours is around heat, hot water during the the heating season, where we have challenges with our plants and our challenges in responding to sort of larger emergencies, larger heat, hot water outages during the winter season. On the work orders, the maintenance work order levels is a measure of addressing simple repairs. We have a target of 7 days. In August, the service level was 4.7 days. This is a reduction of 53.4% from a year ago. Unskilled trades, we are looking at 67.6 days to respond. This is actually down from the 68.1. Again, this is a trend that we hope to continue to move, especially as we look at special initiatives around paint and tile. And the thing to note, though, in this also, in August, we closed 70,488 work orders compared to 62,682 a year ago. So we have an increase of 12.4%. We're doing more work, but what we are also doing is identifying more work to be done. We are doing, with our FAS inspections and our department inspections, we're doing a more diligent job of identifying work orders that need to be done. So that's just one of the challenges we have moving forward. On the department turnaround time, we have a target of 30 days. Year-to-date turnaround for August 2016 was 48.3 days, a reduction of about 11% compared to the 54.1 days from a year ago.
How many apartments turn over in any given period of time, like a month or a year?
900 or so.
900 a month? Oh, wow.
Any given time.
By turnover, does that include the downsizing or?
Yes, this includes from the time it's vacant to the time it's released. So it includes the marketing of it as well as the construction work to bring it back up to speed.
Okay. I have a question on something you already went by, but it has to do with the painting.
Okay, good. Anytime.
Oh, okay. Well, with regards to the painting, I understand that there's a variety of ways that you do the painting. It can be done by our people if it's 1 or 2 rooms, but if it's the entire apartment, I think we go out and get a vendor. Now, do we have access to many vendors? And how quickly do they respond to our requests?
In today's board calendar, you'll see that we're increasing our capacity specifically around paint. And then we're actually taking a fresh look at our overall systems around that. But yes, this is something that on top of our own good work from our own painters, we are looking to augment that work with contract work when appropriate. On customer satisfaction, again, we're showing that about 79.8% of the folks that we call from the CCC suggest that we're doing a satisfactory or good job. One of the efforts that we're looking at now is on the 20%, and going to be looking at a calling of those residents to say, by the way, what was your experience and how can we improve that? What's also not noted here, but layering on this customer satisfaction is our quality assurance system, in which we are going back and looking at work orders when they're closed and ensuring that the work was done properly. I'd like to quickly kind of share with you some of the the highlights from our heating season. It runs October 1st through May 31st. And to prepare for heat season, we have done some preventive maintenance through the spring and summer. By the end of October, we will have serviced 1,980 boilers, 1,799 water heaters, 1,799 vacuum tanks, and 6,488 steam traps. These are systems that, when we talk about the $17 billion capital need that NYCHA is facing with right now, these are some of our most challenging capital needs. About half of the boiler systems we have and distribution systems are beyond their useful life and should be replaced. However, in response to the reality, we have made a concerted effort. I want to actually ask Natasha and Robert Knapp to recognize that the work they've done from when this administration started to where we are now in terms of preparing for this season. Specifically, what we're looking at doing is having redundant equipment so that when something breaks, things will break. We will actually have another system behind it to be able to respond to the needs of the residents while we fix that system that is broken. We're now servicing all steam traps, something we have not done in a while, and we believe that this is something that will improve our performance this year. And we've improved quality controls on preventive maintenance work. So supervisors check the work that technicians have done, and training provided to staff that up to this point we had not been doing as strong a job during the training of the work. One of the things we've also done is we've identified specific things that break. When they break, in the past, it would be a call, no heat or hot water, and our response was we fixed it. Now our response is this particular flange was broken and we repaired it, or this particular shutter was broken and we repaired it, or this particular part of this position. That way we know what parts are needed. We also know historically the weaker parts of the system so that the capital come back. If you can't afford to do the overall capital repair, we can actually replace parts that we know have a history of failure. A key is better communication. Going forward, we'll be placing robocalls to residents, notifying them of service disruptions to various specific developments. And we'll also be robocalling when the systems have been restored. On the reporting, and again, this is what I mentioned a minute ago, we will be looking at identifying recurring issues, having it tied to capital, and also having higher and better staff accountability. When we know something is broken, it wasn't fixed correctly, we now know who worked on it, when they worked on it, and we'll be able to do whatever we need to do as managers to ensure that doesn't happen in the future. And again, just in terms of better reporting so that we can actually know in real time that we can share with our residents how long something will be down and when we can expect it to be up again. Finally, a reminder that this is heating season, October 1st through May 1st. What this means is that from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., if it is 55 degrees outside, that inside we will make our units 68 degrees. And from 10 p.m. at nighttime to 6 a.m. in the morning, if it's 40 degrees outside, then we will have our heat inside at 55 degrees. Starting next week, we'll be initiating a communications campaign with our residents to share with them these facts and to work and have them work with us, that if something feels cold, it isn't necessarily a heat emergency. We have precious resources, and we need to really have our resources respond to critical issues. We really need to work with our residents so they know what our rules and rules of the city of New York are, and so that we can respond to their needs in a very professional and expeditious way. And that board completes the report of the general manager.
I have a question on this. These guidelines that we're using as far as for the heating system, is that aligned with the city's multi-building or multi-level rules as well?
Exactly.
They're aligned.
They're
with
aligned.
that?
Can I just, not guidelines, law.
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 That's the law.
Oh, it's a law.
That's the
Okay.
law.
I just have one question about the heat and hot water. When you say you did a summer overall haul of all of the developments or just some of the developments?
All of the developments.
Okay. So we shouldn't, because we had Mr. Knapp and I forgot another person that came to the meeting last week. And we're still, some of the residents are still having problems with the new heating system. To the point that one resident said that her heat was on all 24/7. So, I just want to make sure that, when we do, this overhaul, that all of the departments are in compliance with the heating stuff according to the rules that you have here.
Yeah. And to be clear, we are still working. We haven't hit the goal line yet in terms of our overhaul. There's still, like in the last sort of month here, we're working like crazy to address issues like that throughout our portfolio, where we know there's still things we need to do, and we want to get them done before it gets too cold.
Actually, so what that reminds me of, is in the winter, you often see NYCHA residents with windows open, right? And that has to do with uneven distribution of heat. Like some apartments get really, really hot, and I presume other apartments don't get hot enough. What about that sort of picture where it seems like there's a distribution problem? How is that being addressed?
It's a problem when we have a system that within the high-rise system where you have, if you're closer to the heat, it will be hotter than if you're farther from the heat. However, what we have been doing is looking at making sure that our distribution lines are clear. So a lot of times it's blockages, and there's things that have happened in the past that exacerbate that situation. So this time around, part of our response is to test the systems while it's still before the heating system happens. But that is unfortunately one of the natures of our inventory right now. It needs to only be corrected with major capital.
And I think the longer term response to that is as part of our energy performance contracting work that we expect to have something like $300 million that will go to those buildings. We call them sort of the energy hog buildings. So really trying to identify those interventions that actually have a greater payoff that we can then reinvest back into the buildings. That's exactly the kind of problem that they are solving. That's a longer term play for the overall portfolio, but at least now through the work of the team, we know where those failures are. We have the data, we have maps, we know that, and I won't name that development because I just got new boilers, which I'm very excited about. Every year they fail. So the question was, if we know it's gonna fail, we should have, let's try and fix it. One, if we don't have the resources, let's make sure we have a redundant system in place. So I think now we at least have a clear sense of the playing field, and we can respond more, we can be smarter in our response. But it is a longer term play for sure.
A suggestion, if I may, in the future, when we do put in these types of systems, would it be possible to include where, to avoid this particular issue, we might put a regulator in the apartments so that if this apartment is too hot, the tenant itself can turn the valve down, so to speak, and regulate their own heat, but they can't, to the point where they can't go a certain extent to where if they try to bring it back, then it fails.
Right. I think that may be something the chair is talking about too, in terms of actually having the ability to have zones or individual controls, either what the residents control or that NYCHA could control, that could actually modify the problems we have.
That might resolve the issues we're having now.
Okay.
I'm gonna hold. We have a lot of.
We got a lot of stuff to get through. Thank you, General Manager. And with that, we are going to start with item number 1.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So good morning, Chair Olatoye, members of the board, General Manager Kelly. My name is Anne Marie Flatley, and I'm the Vice President for Performance Management and Analytics. This resolution is to seek authorization to submit the authority's fiscal year 2017 annual public housing agency plan and the PHA certifications of compliance with the PHA plans and related regulations to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in accordance with Section 511 of the Quality Housing and Work Responsibility Act of 1998. The annual PHA plan provides details about the authority's current programs and the resident population served,
as well as NYCHA's strategy for addressing the housing needs of the currently assisted families and the larger community. The plan, board resolution, and signed certifications will be hand-delivered to the HUD's field office by October 18th, the due date of the plan.
No questions? Okay, thank you.
Can you just give the elevator pitch on any key changes to the plan or what?
Sure. So in this year's plan, we've included RAD. So we did a significant amendment last year for Ocean Bay. In this draft plan and the final plan that will be submitted in October, we're including the larger RAD program of about 5,100 units. So in attachment B, we list the developments that are impacted, the units, as well as provide information about the resident rights, the grievance procedures, things like that. Also, in this plan, we have what's called the 2017 flat rent, which are the ceiling rents that NYCHA has to charge for our residents. So you either pay 30% of your income for rent or this flat rent. And this is actually kind of important because we've been, since 2014, we've been phasing in these flat rent increases. Now we're reaching that HUD level that we need to be at. So those are really the two main things that are in the plan this year that are different than previous years.
Thank you.
And I'll just note that both of the entire plan was subject to borough-wide and citywide town hall meetings that Ms. Flatley and her team
Right.
have.
Yeah, it's been available online. We meet with the resident advisory board on it. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Item number 2.
Good morning, Chair, board members,
Good morning.
GM, Kathy Pennington, EVP for Leased Housing. Authorization is requested to amend the authority's Section 8 administrative plan in accordance with HUD regulations governing the Housing Choice Voucher Program. These policies are being revised to be consistent with new HUD guidelines on fair housing, admissions, payment standards, housing quality standards, and other general program policies. Any questions?
Want to give an elevator pitch just for just going where her brain was?
Annually, we review the plan to update it for any new releases on regulations, or if the administration of the program has decided we need to revise how we do business. This year, probably, again, the most significant addition to the plan is our policies on how we're going to be managing RAD conversions, since it's converting to the Section 8 program. So that's our largest addition. Yes, sir.
I just have one quick statement. You know that my pet peeve is VASH. And so I'm trying to contact some of the people to actually figure out. So I would like to sit with you to get a clear picture of how that works so that when I speak to the government or whoever it is I'm going to be speaking with, we'll be able to determine what the requirements are for a veteran to get into that particular voucher.
Absolutely.
Program.
We're the second largest program in the country, and we've really been doing a lot of innovative work with veterans and housing providers to serve veterans. So we're more than glad to work with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She won't say it, but I will also say that our program was instrumental in New York, essentially ending veterans' homelessness. So because we have these resources that are separate from the normal Section 8 program, we were able to actually do that here in New York City. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, GM, board members. I am here to present board items 3 through 12. So with that, item number 3, request authorization for the approval of investment transactions that were performed by the authority's Treasury Department for the quarter ended June 30th, 2016. These transactions were performed in accordance with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Office of Public and Indian Housing Notice PIH 2002-13. The report outlines the authority's cash and investment position and provides a brief overview of operational changes in cash, changes in investments, and provides current and historical rates of return on the authority's investments as a measure of investment performance. We close out the second quarter with a net portfolio increase of $32,238,898 from the prior quarter. The executive summary portion of the report outlines the major categories of cash flow affecting the change in investments during this quarter. We thus ended the quarter with an investment portfolio of $1,375,280,781, which excludes fiscal agent investments and other cash balances totaling $67,969,419. These are largely comprised of Sandy recovery funds. During the second quarter, 2016, the authority earned $2,323,031.75 in income, representing an annualized rate of return of 69 basis points, which exceeds a comparable benchmark 3-month Treasury bill rate of return of 23 basis points, as well as a 12-month Treasury bill rate of return of 55 basis points. For the 12-month period, interest earned on investments totaled $9,270,871, representing an annualized rate of return of 71 basis points, which exceeded the comparable return of 3-month Treasury bill return rates of 8 basis points and exceeded a 12-month Treasury bill rate of return of 37 basis points. Any questions on the investment report?
No questions, but a comment. I can
Okay.
see why you have gotten this award from up to 69 basis points from, congratulations.
Thank you very much, and thank you for noticing the award. On item number 4, authorization is requested to award the authority's property and terrorism insurance policies. I am requesting authorization to award the authority's property and terrorism insurance policies to provide $425 million of property insurance subject to a $5 million per occurrence deductible for named storm and flood. $1 million is deductible for all perils, and through a separate placement, $150 million of terrorism insurance subject to a $100,000 deductible. The total annual property and terrorism insurance program premium is $10,098,556, and the program is effective October 30th, 2016, continuing to October 30th, 2017. The authority's property and terrorism insurance premium for the recommended program will be decreasing by $1,120,166, or roughly 10%, versus the expiring premium. In addition, the recommended program will reduce the named storm and flood deductible from $7.5 million to $5 million per occurrence. Decrease the business and service interruption waiting period deductible from 72 to 48 hours. Increase the outdoor property, including plants, trees, shrubs, and signs, sublimit by $10 million to $50 million, and provide other coverage enhancements. The terrorism limits will increase by 50% to $150 million overall. And with that, I request your approval to award the renewal property and terrorism insurance program as described.
These cover all of our properties.
Correct. Right. And so the reason it's $425 million is that, again, in a catastrophe, we would not expect every property at the same time. And so that's how we came to that.
So it sounds like you've done a great job in reducing costs and increasing coverage. So congratulations on that as well. But I have no point of reference as far as, the coverage limits, et cetera, as far as what makes sense. Do we have an insurance consultant who helps us, or is there somebody a risk manager on staff who helps us sort of make sense of what coverages make sense, et cetera? How do we know we have adequate coverage, et cetera?
That is excellent, because that leads into the board request for 5, 6, 7, and 8.
I saw that. We are hiring a consultant, but to date, have we had one?
Yes, these consultants have
So
been in
they've
place.
been in place. I
Yes.
see.
Okay, great question.
Can I take a step at that? My name is Arlene Ornstein, I'm the director.
Arlene, you need to come to the mic if you're going to speak, because we're taping and streaming
I just wanted to say that it's not cost effective to buy more than $425 million worth of blanket insurance, nor is it available in the market. So that's one of the reasons. And we've never had a catastrophe that has actually impacted all of our properties at one time for maximum value, because we have about $43.8 billion in assets. We can't buy insurance for that anywhere. We'd be out of business.
Okay. All right. So Authorization is requested. This is, again, Board Resolution 5, 6, 7, and 8. Authorization is requested to enter an agreement with 4 vendors to provide insurance broking, risk control, risk management, and auditing services on behalf of the authority commencing January 1, 2017, and continuing through December 31st, 2021, or commencing on such other date as may be determined by the general manager, the executive vice president of finance, and continuing for 5 years thereafter. The Risk Department requests the award of agreements for insurance broker consultants to procure insurance and provide risk management services. The request for proposal, the RFP number 63145 for insurance brokers and consultants, was released on February 24th, 2016. The objective of the RFP was to select the most qualified firms to provide the following 5 services: insurance broking services, risk management consulting services, risk control consulting services, auditing consulting services, and community operations insurance broking services for the purpose of complying with HUD mandates for required insurance. The RFP was released, and the RFP was advertised in Business Insurance, the Jewish Press, El Diario, the City Record, Minority Commerce Weekly, and the Amsterdam News. The bids closed on March 24th, 2016. 13 firms downloaded the RFP, and 6 firms submitted proposals in response to the RFP. So I'm going to start with the insurance brokering services. Authorization is requested to enter into an agreement with Edgewood Partners Insurance Carrier, hereafter referred to as EPIC, to provide insurance broking and claim services for the following lines of coverage: general and auto liability coverage, workers' compensation excess liability coverage, property insurance coverage, national flood insurance program placement, terrorism coverage, public officials liability coverage, employee practices liability coverage, cyber liability coverage, and other emerging risks as necessary. Under this agreement, the broker will also submit and develop claims packages as necessary to the carrier of record for that line of insurance as appropriate. Therefore, it is recommended that the members authorize the chair, the GM, or their respective designees to enter into an agreement with EPIC for an amount not to exceed $3,475,000 pursuant to the aforementioned terms and conditions and such other terms as the general counsel or the general counsel's designee deem appropriate. Auditing. Authorization is requested to enter an agreement with Vision Risk LLC to provide auditing services to the authority's tort claims and workers' compensation claims as follows: assess the soundness of the tort division and its outside consultants, including defense counsel, surveillance, and other experts, performance standards, and operational methods for the handling of liability claims as compared to the industry best practices. Assess the reasonableness and appropriateness of reserve philosophy, identify areas of improvement, and recommend appropriate enhancements to the self-administered liability program. On the workers' comp claims, review of open and closed claim files and the amount necessary to achieve a 90% confidence level, review of the third-party administrator or the TPA, compliance with the agreed-upon operating standards, ensure the TPA's reserving and related adjustment practices are appropriate, and audit of TPA's New York State Section 15-8 reimbursement submissions. Therefore, it is recommended that the members authorize the chair, the GM, or their respective designees to enter into an agreement with Vision Risk LLC for an amount not to exceed $1,025,500 pursuant to the aforementioned terms and conditions and such other terms as the general counsel or the general counsel's designee deem appropriate. Risk management. Authorization is requested to enter into an agreement with JP West, Inc. to provide risk management services as follows: review of the authority's workmen's compensations, TPA contractual operating standards are being adhered to. Review of the existing procedures in terms of the realistic case management and evaluation of benchmark staffing. Review of invitations for bid for the procurement of policies in all lines of coverage. Provide industry oversight to the broker to ensure there are no duplications or gaps in coverage. Ensure appropriate retention, viability of the carriers, and maintain the authority's vehicle and equipment schedules and total insured values for all buildings and properties in the authority's portfolio for insurance and renewal purposes. Therefore, it is recommended that the members authorize the chair, the GM, or their respective designees to enter into an agreement with JP West, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $2,183,029 pursuant to the aforementioned terms and conditions and such other terms as the general counsel or the general counsel's designee deem appropriate. Yes.
One question. So does the consultant also help with the brokerage relationship?
Yes.
And right, okay. So and on pricing specifically, right? Because I've encountered this in my own business life where brokers often they're serving a couple masters, one themselves as well as you, and so you need to make sure that you have transparency on the pricing, et cetera, right? And so the consultant is often the person that can help with that.
Correct.
Is that right? Yeah.
And if you listen to the descriptions, you will see that we have, like the consultant here also looking at the third-party administrator, and then we have a broker, we have the consultant looking at the broker. So there's a lot of cross-checks, if you will, in addition to our own staff. But yes.
And that's one of the reasons.
Arlene, you got it. You need, if you're gonna jump up, you gotta use the mic.
I could use the
And introduce
exercise.
yourself as well, please.
Arlene Orenstein, Director for Risk Finance. I work with this lovely CFO. And that is one of the reasons we hired a risk management consultant aside from the duties, because we don't want to have a conflict of interest. We don't want to have a broker moving business towards companies that they have a relationship with. And in addition, all of their contracts forbid them to receive commissions on our account. They just have a service fee, which is what this contract represents.
Okay.
All right. Risk control services. Authorization is requested to enter into an agreement with Marsh USA Inc. to provide risk control services as follows. Loss of control for the authority's workers' compensation program, including accident analysis, as well as strategies to improve the injury rate for employees. Provide overall loss prevention strategies for property liability, providing safer environments for both residents and employees alike. Maintain retention schedule for workers' compensation claims that approach self-insured retention in each program year. Compile mandatory OSHA annual injury reporting for each work location throughout the authority. Provide on-site inspection of 1,000 buildings per year on a rotating 3-year cycle. Assist in the further development of the authority's transitional return to work program and other assignments as deemed appropriate as the risks emerge. Therefore, it is recommended that the members authorize the chair, the general manager, or their respective designees to enter into an agreement with Marsh USA Inc. for an amount not to exceed $3,570,465 pursuant to the aforementioned terms and conditions and such other terms as the general counsel or the general counsel's designee deems appropriate. And lastly, in this section, although not a board resolution item, it is being included here for informational purposes. It was part of the RFP that was sent out. NYCHA funds various community service programs provided by various non-governmental, not-for-profit entities, hereafter referred to as NGOs. Programs are run in several NYCHA locations as part of NYCHA's contractual agreement with these NGOs. NYCHA procures insurance for the purpose of protecting both NYCHA and these NGOs from liability claims arising out of these program services. In connection therewith, the COIB or the broker shall perform the following services. An agreement with the winning proposer, the Taylor Group, will provide services as follows. NYCHA's Community Operations Department and Risk Finance will submit an annual estimate of the number of NGOs. Currently, they approximate 300. And agreements as negotiated with NGOs to the broker, and the broker must negotiate on behalf of NYCHA revised insurance quotes net of fees. The broker must provide administrative services related to community operations, consultant liability policies that are effective February 1, 2016, including applications, binders, and certificates of insurance. It should be noted that many of the community programs will not be sponsored by NYCHA in the coming years and may be phasing. However, until such time that happens, there will be a need to procure insurance for these various organizations as they use our facilities.
Questions?
No? Okay. You'll be happy to know 9 through 12 is combined. It should be fairly quick. Authorization is requested for 4 board resolutions, 16-9, 28, 9, 10, 11, and 12, which seeks ratification of award of emergency contracts between the authority and 2 vendors, East Coast Petroleum, Inc. and Rucci Oil Company, Inc., to provide furnishing and delivery of grade number 2 ultra-low sulfur diesel and fuel at various developments in the Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Staten Island. The emergency contracts were required because on May 23rd, 2016, the authority declared an existing vendor SGA Fuel Oil, Inc., to be in default of contract number 1527828 after its owner, Peter Darko, had been indicted in the spring of 2016 for stealing heating oil. SJ Fuel was awarded a 5-year, $78 million contract to supply number 2 ultra-low sulfur heating oil with 2% biodiesel to developments in the Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Staten Island. As a direct result, the authority sought and obtained written proposals from 3 qualified firms to supply oil on an interim basis to the affected developments. East Coast was the lowest bidder for supplying oil to developments in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Manhattan, while Rucci was the lowest bidder for supplying oil for Staten Island developments. A contract was already awarded previously to East Coast through the normal bidding process for the Borough of Queens and therefore did not require an emergency requirement contract. The Supply Management Department requested an opinion of counsel for emergency contracts to cover the Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Staten Island for these 2 vendors, which was granted on June 14, 2016. These interim contracts have 6-month terms, and the aggregate not to exceed amount is $6,510,000 to provide capacity while the authority pursues the solicitation of conventional long-term contracts. Later this fall, the authority will solicit conventional long-term contracts that will require future board approval. I should note that there was no impropriety discovered at any NYCHA facilities, but again, with an abundance of caution, we thought it best to move on to a new vendor. And so with that, I request your approval for the aforementioned interim contracts. Thank you.
I have one question. So I noticed the estimate is the exact same as the amount. And is that because there's just a very straightforward unit price for all these things? Or that's right?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Carrie Jew, Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer, and I'm here to present the next 4 board resolutions. The first of these 4 is Resolution Number 13, in which I am requesting the authority to amend the agreement with Automotive Rentals Incorporated for maintenance and repair services for the authority's official vehicles. I am seeking to increase the not-to-exceed amount by $3 million. The agreement with ARI was originally authorized by Board Resolution Number 13-10/23-11, which approved execution of a 2-year agreement for an amount not to exceed $6.6 million. That agreement was subsequently amended by Board Resolution 15-9/30-14 to increase the not-to-exceed amount by $3.3 million in order to fund the first 1-year renewal option. I am asking for authorization to increase the not-to-exceed amount by $3 million in order to fund the continued provision of services for the second 1-year renewal option commencing on December 1st, 2016 and continuing through November 30th, 2017. Over the last 5 years, ARI has provided approximately $11.5 million worth of maintenance and repair services for the authority's official vehicles and horticultural equipment. Currently, ARI is continuing to service the approximately 930 official authority vehicles and the approximately 2,000 pieces of horticultural equipment located across the 5 boroughs. Therefore, I am requesting your approval to fund the continued provision of services by ARI by exercising the second 1-year renewal option with a not-to-exceed amount of $3 million.
How do we know the rate's competitive?
The contract was bid out originally, and it was bid out with the renewal options. So the rate is part of the original contract. Okay, now the next 3 resolutions I will take at once. Those are resolutions 14, 15, and 16. All 3 agreements are for staff augmentation services, and with all 3 amendments, I am seeking authorization to increase the not-to-exceed amounts. In Board Resolution Number 14, I am requesting authorization to amend the agreement with IT Trailblazers, Inc. to increase the not-to-exceed amount by $4,500,000. In Board Resolution Number 15, I am requesting authorization to amend the agreement with Trigen Technologies, Inc. to increase the not-to-exceed amount by $10,200,000. And in Board Resolution number 16, I am requesting authorization to amend the agreement with IIT Inc. to increase the not-to-exceed amount by $9,500,000. The agreement with IT Trailblazers was originally authorized by Board Resolution number 13-10/23-28 and amended by subsequent resolutions to renew for one-year terms. The current term expires on November 25th, 2016. Authorization is requested to amend the agreement with IT Trailblazers to increase the not-to-exceed amount by $4,500,000 in order to fund the continued provision of services for the third one-year renewal option. The agreement with Trigen was originally authorized by the board in resolution number 13-10/23-28 and amended by subsequent resolutions to renew for one-year terms. The current term expires on December 4th, 2016. Authorization is requested to amend the agreement with Trigen to increase the not-to-exceed amount by $10,200,000 in order to fund continued provision of services for the third one-year renewal option. The agreement with IIT was originally authorized by the board in resolution number 13-10/23-28 and amended by subsequent resolutions to renew for one-year terms. The current term expires November 17th, 2016. Authorization is requested to amend the agreement with IIT to increase the not-to-exceed amount by $9,500,000 in order to fund the continued provision of services for the third one-year renewal options. By way of background, NYCHA has engaged all three vendors for staff augmentation services. Under these agreements, the vendors provide NYCHA with temporary services on an as-needed basis when a specific skill set is required and existing authority staff cannot perform the work. With the implementation of Next Generation NYCHA, as well as unanticipated business projects related to emergency regulatory requirements, we have seen an increased need for additional specialized resources, particularly within the IT department. Therefore, I am requesting your approval to fund the continued provision of services with IT Trailblazers, Trigen, and IIT for the third one-year renewal options for a total of $24,200,000. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, Carrie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Farhan Sayed, Vice President for Construction Programs, Capital Projects Division. I'll be presenting items number 17 through 28. Items number 17 through 19 are three requests to award job order contracts for general construction at various developments citywide. As part of the Capital Projects Division comprehensive plan to address the ongoing development construction needs, CPD competitively bid several job contracts. These job contracts were designed by trade based on geographic regions. The sites are not predetermined and construction work will be performed on an as-needed basis. The contractors competitively bid their adjustment factors based on the pre-established prices in the job order contract construction task catalog. The contract term duration is 2 years with 2 separate one-year renewal options. The scope of work includes, but is not limited to, general construction work, including carpentry, concrete, and masonry. On July 12th, these contracts were bid. The contractors competitively bid the adjustment factors based on a pre-established job task order catalog. The bid factor estimate for these job order catalog contracts is 1.21. From the bids received, bid factors ranged from 1.1820 to 3.3050. After evaluating the bid factors and the intended scope for these job order contracts, CPD conducted a post-bid meeting with the 2 lowest bidders. An evaluation of their capacity as well as their current workload was conducted, and based on our findings, CPD recommends the following awards. For item number 17, for Brooklyn Staten Island, contract number GR1610154, we recommend award to Gridspan Corporation with a bid factor of 1.1820. For item number 18 and 19, we recommend award for contracts at Bronx, Queens, and Manhattan to WDF Incorporated with a bid factor of 1.2388. Based on the contractor's references and their verifications, these contractors were found to be responsible and possess the necessary experience to successfully perform the work required. Both contractors have acknowledged the Section 3 requirement and their understanding as well as the proposed methodology for compliance. The contractor's participation will be predicated on the assignment of a job order to the contractor coupled with the value of the job order. So while there are no current projected Section 3 hires, that is only because the job orders have not been written. The Section 3 language will be included in each of the job orders, and successful contractors will be tracked with regard to Section 3 compliance on a job order basis.
Is there a specific scope for these contracts, or are these contractors that are being brought on to be able to respond more quickly?
It is
scope
both.
is very vague.
It is both. It is to respond in a speedy and expeditious manner based on the values and the line items in the construction task catalogs, because you have already set established prices. And also, they will be able to work on various general construction tasks, including concrete work, masonry work, carpentry work. So if there is an apartment that requires work, or there is exterior brickwork that's required, we can actually speedily respond and work through these job order contracts to those needs.
But it's future based. We don't have a scope defined today.
We don't have,
It's as things come
as
in.
the job orders
Right,
come up,
okay.
and they are basically scoped. That's when the scope
Right.
is defined.
Right.
One quick question. I think we might have talked about this before, but in the bid process, when you talk about that bid factor,
Yes, sir.
what is that encompassing? And you attach a numerical value to it.
Right. So the bid, yes. So you're talking about the 1.21 bid factor? The 1.21 bid factor actually includes the 21% overhead and profit. That is basically the contractor's margin. So that's why the 1.21 factor is outlined as the base factor. And on top of that, the contractors, when they bid, they look at their degree of difficulties that they anticipate while doing their work. And their bid factor that they put into their contract is basically on top of that, whatever limitations, if it's a limitation due to work conditions, interior, exterior work, field conditions, they put that anticipated factor on top of it, and then they bid their bid factor on it.
So you end up with a final bid factor that
Yes.
kind of aggregates all these.
That final bid factor includes the contractor's overhead and profit, as well as the degree of difficulty or any other variances that they may encounter while doing the construction work.
What's the max and what's the minimum of a bid factor? Maybe start there.
They are, depending on the market conditions, it could be lower than what we anticipate. We have received lower bid factors than 1.21, and in some cases, it depends.
What's our max, right? Is it
50
5?
It's basically 15%. 15%. Yes.
Okay.
On top of that, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's right. Just what are we dealing with? Right? So 15 being max.
Yes.
So if we determine that a bid came in at a bid factor of 15, that would in our parlance would be
Acceptable.
acceptable.
Yes.
But no higher than that.
But no higher than
Yes. If it's higher than that, we have to really look at very hard at the present conditions and come up with a real justification to award that contract above that.
So I just got very confused. So the 15, is that, you're saying 15%, so are you saying you're taking 1.21
And on top of that,
adding 15,
yes.
so a max bid or max factor of 1.36?
Yes.
Is what you're saying, okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Good refresher.
Item number 20 is a request to award Lafayette Gardens replacement of underground water and fire distribution lines to the lowest responsible bidder, Schoonsos Plumbing and Heating Corporation, in the amount of $1,864,000. Lafayette Gardens consists of 7 buildings with 882 apartments. This contract will address the replacement of underground water and fire distribution piping at all 7 buildings. The scope of work includes piping replacement, excavation, and asbestos abatement. The term of this contract is 730 days. Schoonsos has been in operation since 1987. They have performed 8 projects at NYCHA as prime contractor, valued at $8.8 million. They were vetted by procurement department, and they found no reasons to preclude award. There is a projection of 1 Section 3 hire under this contract. Questions? The next 3 items are regarding a part of the disaster recovery program for developments which have been impacted by Hurricane Sandy. These board items are a part of an initiative and a proactive approach to have a second defense line and redundancy built into preventing any heat and hot water interruption to our residents at the Sandy affected developments which have temporary boilers. These temporary boilers are connected to existing building systems which are not a part of existing maintenance contract. Based on past experiences, these systems periodically break down, affecting the operation of a temporary natural gas boilers. Therefore, to ensure uninterrupted service to our residents, these amounts as change orders are being requested with a maximum amount of $350,000, which are necessary to cover the cost of as-needed repairs on the building systems related to these temporary boilers through the term of the temporary boiler contracts. We anticipate that these allowances to cover as-needed repairs over the next 2 heating seasons will be sufficient until the permanent boilers are phased in. So for item number 21, we are requesting a change order in the amount of $350,000 to Cordoon Construction Corporation for Red Hook East and West. For item number 22, we are requesting change order for Cordoon Corporation for temporary boilers at developments in Brooklyn. And for item number 23, we are requesting a change order for $350,000 to Merrick Mechanical Incorporated for Sandy affected developments in Queens.
So this is just in the event of, not
Yes.
that we're giving these
Yes.
folks additional resources in their contract, but in the event that there's a failure
Precisely.
of the existing temporary boilers.
Right.
We have money to be able to
Right.
immediately.
Precisely.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes, sir.
Just something in general. Since a lot of these job order contracts, we cannot determine the scope of the work as far as how much of it is gonna done. So I'm looking at, can we, as it moves forward, get an indication from you as to scope of work, amount of Section 3 hires
Yes.
at a
Yes.
later date?
Yes.
Okay.
For these,
Great
absolutely.
minds. I actually asked staff for our December board meeting to do a look back for the year of what was projected, where we are. There may be some things that still haven't come because the work hasn't been scoped, but I think it would be good for us to see that. So December board meeting, so that we can have a full account.
Thank you. Item number 24 is a request to award Independence Tower's replacement of water closet vents to the second lowest bidder, Gem Quality Corporation, in the amount of $1,340,216. Independence Towers consists of 6 buildings with 744 apartments. This contract provides for replacement of water closet vents at 3 buildings, buildings 2, 3, and 4. The scope of work includes, but is not limited to, removal and installation of new water closet vents, demolition, abatement, and painting. The term of this contract is 360 days. The first low bidder, Nationwide Mechanical, submitted a bid without a bid bond, and as a result, they were deemed non-responsive. Gem Quality Corporation is a minority-owned business and has been in operation since 1999. They have performed 4 projects as prime contractors, valued at over $20 million for Housing Authority. Their overall performance evaluation is satisfactory, and they understand the scope of work, and we are confident that they have the capacity to perform this work. There are 9 Section 3 hires projected for this contract. Thank you. Item number 25 is a request to award requirements contract for asbestos and lead abatement project monitoring and management for various developments citywide. to the lowest responsible bidder, Genesis Environmental Consultants, Inc., in the amount of $5,952,256.80. As required by the New York City Department of Environmental Protection, this contract provides for asbestos and lead abatement project monitoring and management to confirm abatement is performed by contracted vendors in compliance with the DEP regulations. The scope of work includes sampling of asbestos and lead for various building facades, roofs, and interior building components. The term for this contract is 730 days. Genesis is a minority-owned business and has been in operation since 1988, and they have performed 5 projects as prime contractors valued at over $3 million. The Section 3 requirement projection for this contract is 11. Yes.
How are we approaching abatement on a portfolio-wide basis? What's the plan?
This contract is basically for monitoring, air monitoring, as well as providing project management for any contract that capital takes in for, which includes asbestos, lead, or any hazardous material. So for any contract that we bid out, normally asbestos and lead is a part of it. These are going to be citywide contracts where we need a requirement for a support from a project monitor to go and do air monitoring services. So this contract can actually help any of our job contractors where we have asbestos abatement, or any of our other standalone contracts that do not have asbestos abatement as a part of it.
So if I understand you correctly, in a case where there's going to be a construction project that is going to disrupt asbestos or lead, and in which case abatement is needed, these folks step in and help, but otherwise things are
yes,
status quo.
Only if any hazardous material is disturbed as a part of our construction work.
One second, Farhan, you gotta go. Introduce yourself.
Morning. I'm David Farber, General Counsel, Acting Chief of Staff. If you're asking about the larger issue of lead abatement, that's handled separately on an operational basis. So that's different from the construction contract, and we do have a full plan for addressing lead paint issues.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Item number 26, it is a request to award Wrangell Houses restoration associated with Sandy Recovery Program to the second lowest responsible bidder, Delrick Construction Corporation Incorporated, in the amount of $23,354,200. Wrangell Houses consists of 8 buildings with 984 apartments. As part of the Sandy Recovery Program, this contract provides for restoration of 5 buildings under this contract. The scope of work includes new annex building to house electrical equipment, above flood levels, installation of standby generators, flood proofing of the critical spaces in the basement, flood mitigation measures, relocation and reinstallation of utilities, partial roof replacement, and as required, and site restoration due to construction work. The first low bidder, SNN Builders, put in a bid that failed to include critical portion of the scope of work in their bid proposal. As a result, SNN's bid was deemed non-responsive. Delrick has been in operation since 2007. This is their first contract with NYCHA. A reference check on past work was conducted and found satisfactory. This includes projects of similar nature with various other governmental agencies, such as Dormitory Authority of State of New York and New York School Construction Authority. The Section 3 projection for this contract is 9.
Mr. Said, how do you do a partial roof replacement? Is that there are certain buildings that were damaged and others that weren't, or how are we going to determine that?
Right. So when you do partial roof replacement, it means that any work on the roof that is affected by associated work. So if they're working on any facades or any adjacent portion or components which will affect part of the roof, only that portion of the roof will be
So
Are
no
affected.
roof replacement
Yes,
as
this-
part of this contract.
A very good question, because we just finished a roofing and brickwork contract at Wrangle Houses under our Bond B program.
That's right. That's
Right.
So I was just
Yes,
trying
Bond
to
B
understand,
program.
or we're not going to go and undo the
No,
work that
no,
we just did.
no.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Item number 27 is a request to award Fulton Houses Community Center renovation to Gem Quality Corporation in the amount of $6,618,381. Fulton Houses consists of 11 buildings with 945 apartments. This contract provides for the renovation of a community center located at Building 119 9th Avenue in Manhattan. The scope of work will include new kitchen and bathrooms, new rooftop mechanical HVAC equipment, roof replacement, expanded front entrance with planters, and upgraded electrical service. The term of this contract is 420 days. Gem Quality is a minority-owned business, and they have been in operation since 1999. There's a projection of 9 Section 3 hires on this contract.
Chair, I have a question for you about this one. So I think community centers are great and serve an important function. I also know that part of your agenda has been to really sort of focus efforts both fiscally and human resource wise, and et cetera, and also those commercial retail programs. So how does this fit into that picture?
So you will fact check me. I believe this is funded by the city council.
Yes, it is.
And so this is where we work in partnership with our colleagues in government who help us meet the other priorities that we are not using our federal funds for. Okay. But great question. And we definitely encourage others to do so.
Item number 28 is a request to authorize a change order for Hope Gardens boiler replacement work for Stevens Technical Services Incorporated in the amount of $61,679.71. On September 30th, 2015, the construction reached substantial completion at Hope Gardens. However, the regulatory inspections for New York City Department of Buildings and Department of Environmental Protection were delayed. The DOB inspection held on June 3rd, 2016, cited an objection to the existing chimney flue locations. DOB recommended that the 3 chimney flue gas vents need to be extended approximately 20 feet above their existing location. And in order to obtain the DOB regulatory sign-off, a change order is required to perform this work. The contractor's proposed change order proposal was $72,959, and it was negotiated down to $61,679. The work will be completed by January 2017 and without any interruption to our residents for heat and hot water. This project can be then signed off by the regulatory agency and be closed out.
I'm very happy that this is happening. I'll just tell you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yes,
Good morning.
it still is morning.
Yeah.
My name is Brian Clark. I'm the Senior Vice President of Operations for Property Management, and I'll be presenting the next 10 items to you. I want to apologize ahead of time. I do have the sniffles, so I hope you're not going to have a flashback to Tuesday night with Mr. Trump.
How's your mic?
How's
How's your mic?
Monday night, sorry. Feel free to fact check me at any time. But anyhow, item number 29.
We won't interrupt you.
Yeah. Item number 29 is award of a requirement contract for various types of aluminum windows. We use these to help support our operations. So when we have vacant apartments that we're preparing for occupancy, we'll use this contract to replace windows as needed, as well as occupied apartments if we have windows that are broken. Authorization is requested to award this contract to the sole responsive and responsible bidder, Franklin Glass Corporation, for the not to exceed amount. This requirement contract also provides for a 1-year renewal option to be exercised at the authority's sole discretion. The contract amount is $259,913.09, and it is a 3-year requirement contract.
Just a question. Why only one bidder?
Yeah, so I think there was approximately 22 bid packages that were picked up. The explanations that we received from the other bidders was the requirement for delivery to multiple locations. So when we do order these, they are drop shipped. They're taken directly to the development. And then the other is some of the unique sizes that we have in our buildings.
And the new windows are energy. Are they energy?
Well, they're
efficient?
replacing as is. They do, they are. I can get you the exact factor that they have. So they are, theoretically energy efficient windows, for them, but they're actually going into that existing opening, and it may only be the pane that we're replacing. It's not the entire. Not the entire window.
So I guess
So we'll
another
have
question would be,
It will have the inert gas.
right, when it's a full replacement, we should use every opportunity to actually be like sealing our buildings, right? So if it's a pane of glass, I understand, but if it's a full window, it would make sense that it's energy efficient.
Yes, I agree with you. All right.
So we'll make that change.
Yes.
And it's not
I'll
just
loop back and I'll make sure that these meet the requirements that you're established.
And it's not just to properly seal building. It's not just the window, but how it's
It's how it's installed.
The detailing. That part of it.
Yeah, usually, we're capping there's actually an original window underneath. The windows that we have are actually capping those windows. But the key thing is making sure it's tight around there, making sure you're caulking it properly, both inside and outside. Okay. Okay, item 30 is award of a requirement contract for 14.6 cubic feet Energy Star efficient refrigerators. Once again, we use these as needed for when we are preparing apartments for occupancy, and also in occupied apartments when refrigerators, break down and cannot be repaired. The authorization is requested to award this requirement contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, PC Richards and Son, Long Island Corporation, for the not to exceed amount. The first, second, and third lowest bidders were deemed non-responsive because the product they offered did not conform with the bid specifications. This requirement contract also provides for a 1-year renewal option to be exercised at the authority's sole discretion. It's a 2-year requirement contract, and the total amount is $9,360,000. Yes, Board Member Gonzalez.
Just one quick question. How do we determine when it has to be replaced?
Okay, that'll be on-site determination. So if it's a simple repair, such as replacing the gasket on the door, well, we will fix it. But however, if it's typically if it's a problem with the compressor, it's shot, and we will then replace the entire refrigerator.
Just let me play devil's advocate. How many times does it take before you determine?
No, that's
it.
So that's a very good question, and especially since because of our limited resources, when you look at our cycle replacement schedule, it is a pretty extended schedule. 15 years for refrigerators. So definitely, when you're getting into years 9 and beyond, you can get frequent breakdowns. On that. Recently, with some of our analysis that we're doing with work orders, we see that there are areas, for example, certainly with stoves where we have a lot of breakdown, and refrigerators, and so those are the areas that we're focusing for. Whole scale, replacement of those refrigerators. But you're right, there can be nuisance calls where we're going back, and I know you have to deal with them at times when some of the tenants will reach out to you.
Yes. Okay.
So just to take that question, and then maybe it's something to plan for in the future, GM, is to think about, we used to do, just like we used to do cyclical painting for apartments, we used to do cyclical replacements. And we understand we don't have the resources to do it for our entire, but maybe we can start to set some annual goals by looking at the analysis that we're currently doing and saying, so we just did wholesale replacement at
Sedgwick.
Sedgwick.
Up in the Bronx.
Yes, right. So maybe we start to sort of set some annual goals of trying to tackle, some of the oldest, the ones that have been, the oldest ones that haven't been replaced. So it's not something, just in terms of managing expectations, it's not something that at this time we think we can do wholesale, but begin to set, so by 2000, I'm making it, by 2000 something, every apartment will have had a new refrigerator. It's also something that we could start to galvanize our elected partners around supporting. So let's use that analysis to maybe start to set some annual goals.
The only comment I want to make on that is when we were supposed to get, was it $100 million from the governor? And he decided that he was going to give it to the elected officials, and they decided they were going to give us refrigerators and stoves. My preference would have been the $100 million coming to the housing authority outright without any strings attached. That's my comment.
And do the roof.
Okay.
Do the roof.
Duly noted.
And in fairness, and another shout to the team, I believe 7 of those construction projects with that first 100 million have begun. So with a ton of work by Capital and probably a ton of other folks, we've worked with the Dormitory Authority to begin construction with some of that money, and mostly cameras and doors, I think. But it has been slow. But we remain committed to trying to meet those requirements.
I have it's a simple question though, but I had one of the residents raise it to me. If a resident is moving from one apartment to another, does the refrigerator and stove that they had in the previous apartment, they move it to the
No.
apartment that they're moving in, or
No.
do they get a new stove and refrigerator?
So yeah, so it would depend on the condition of, so they're moving to, it's a transfer. So they're moving to a new apartment.
Mhm.
So the new apartment could have new appliances depending upon the condition at the time of the move out,
Mhm.
or it could have
Refurbished.
a refrigerator or stove that could be a few years old. Okay, but and then there's also situations where tenants do purchase their own appliances.
that's
Then in
true,
those
yeah.
cases, they would take those with them.
Take them with them.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Item 31 and 32, I'd like to group together. They're very similar. These are awards of requirement contracts for various types of kitchen countertops. So these, when we're prepping for apartments, for occupancy, and also in occupied units, when we have to replace the base cabinets or even just the countertop, we would order the countertops, from this company, and they would be drop shipped to the location. Item number 31 is for our developments in Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island. Authorization is requested to award this requirement contract to lowest responsive and responsive bidder, Rhinone Corporation, for the not to exceed amount. This requirement contract also provides for a 1-year renewal option to be exercised at the authority's sole discretion. It's a 3-year requirement contract. The total contract amount is $1,497,871.
In the case of the countertops, are they just suppliers? Are they suppliers and installers?
No, they're just suppliers. We
They're
install.
just suppliers?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, got it.
And then item 32, authorization is requested to award the requirement contract to lowest responsive responsible bidder, Rhinone Corporation, for the not to exceed amount. This requirement contract also provides for a 1-year renewal option to be exercised at the authority's sole discretion. Once again, 3-year requirement contract. This is for our Bronx and Manhattan developments, $2,588,030.
The estimate on this one was higher than, so it was over 100%, whereas the previous estimate, same contractor, was less. But how's that?
Yeah, I'll have to circle back to our procurement department and provide you with an answer for that. I don't have that right now. Just tell me. Okay.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. Item 33, authorization to enter into an agreement with Gabriella Trucking Sales Limited. We are purchasing 12 bucket trucks to be used at our properties. They'll be distributed, throughout our, the 5 boroughs. We use these vehicles for repairing exterior lights, as well as cleaning canopies, and they extend up almost 30 feet. And we also do some masonry work with them as needed, and also can take debris out of trees as well. The authorization is requested to enter into an agreement with Gabriella Truck Sales Limited for 12 utility trucks with aerial lift, commencing on October 1st, 2016, and continuing through November 30th, 2016, or commencing on such other date as may be determined by the General Manager or the Senior Vice President of Operations, pursuant to the terms and conditions of the New York City Department of Citywide Administrative Services Contract, RC 201612000496.
This is just a question to get some knowledge as to boundaries. you mentioned bucket trucks, and so that brought to mind a particular problem. How far from our property do we extend into the sidewalk where a tree issue is ours or the city's?
Yeah, so predominantly, this is the vast majority, perimeter sidewalks, DOT responsibility. The trees are the park's responsibility.
I'm sorry?
The trees are the park's responsibility.
Parks Department.
Parks Department.
Parks Department.
Yeah.
Any tree.
Yeah. Typically.
Even if it's on a house.
Even if it's on our property?
If it's on the perimeter sidewalk, if it's within the boundaries of our developments, within our grounds, then that is our responsibility. And there, if you have a particular case.
For my clarity, this is the end of our property.
Okay.
The street is where the first row from away from the building.
Yeah.
The tree is at the edge of the street.
Yes.
Whose responsibility?
That's typically
The city?
Yeah,
Okay.
typically the city's
All right.
Call
responsibility.
Community Board 6, call your community board.
I got it.
But if there is a hazardous condition, that needs to be escalated to property management staff, and we can work closely with
Absolutely.
with our colleagues in government
Yeah.
to get a response to it.
It could be, it's also has become a tripping hazard. The tree has outgrown space, and so it's starting to edge towards.
So let's talk offline and figure out how we can get a response to that.
I have just one question about the contract. Have we done the cost benefit analysis of renting versus buying?
The, for this particular, this piece here, no, we did not do, lease versus buy, analysis.
It's only 12 trucks, it's not a lot.
You mean lease as needed or just or have long-term leases?
Yeah.
We need them because we
We-
use them all the time. We use them to replace lighting in the developments. So, and it's only 12, it's not really like a fleet of them.
No, but but we do on a case by case, we do think at times we do rent equipment, as needed, and that's a, valid point. And also it depends upon funding sources as well. Some things we have flexibility to buy, with certain funding, and other funding we would be limited to renting. But that's a valid point for this item.
So just because I think there's some questions about this. So another question would be, if this is not something we choose to not to take this off today's agenda, what type of work what are we stopping?
Yeah,
Different question. Do we have existing?
We have
bucket trucks?
yes,
Okay.
we have existing bucket
Okay.
trucks.
And if we
With
had to
the-
wait 30 days
Yeah, and then, so with this,
so that we could do that analysis.
so so if you wanted to wait 30 days, what would be the overall
The
impact?
impact. Yeah.
So the one of the things is we'll be able to respond quicker to exterior lights being out, to the other conditions that we talked about. We have the ability to do that now, just not as quickly. Our service level right now for exterior lights is somewhere around 4 to 5 days. We'd like to move that up, and having these trucks would help us move that up. But if
So
certainly the
I'll make a
board's just.
suggestion, which is I think exterior lighting is a really important issue and for security and other rights. And of course, it's your call, Chair, but I'm comfortable approving this. I just think in the future for sizable contracts where there's a rental option, I'd love to see an analysis.
I think I agree. Is it possible, Corporate Secretary, to make an amendment to the item, which is to say if that analysis is done in the interim, that something is cheaper or more cost effective, that we can come back and redress this issue?
Okay.
And just one last thing, is it possible to obtain one of these vehicles, especially a bucket type, that's can reach higher for more difficult areas, at least have one
Yeah, we're
that would
approaching.
be different than the rest? Because many of our developments have areas that are very hard to
Yeah.
reach,
Yeah.
even with the regular bucket.
Yeah, we actually, last year, earlier this year, we purchased a lift that goes up to 90 feet, which is helping us big time. It's amazing work can get into. We're actually purchasing more of those. But you're right, you have to have different tools depending upon the configuration of the property, because you can't actually get these trucks into every single location, and certainly there's limitations on height. Okay.
Have you done in the past any leases? Have you actually done
Yes.
long-term leases? of
Yeah,
these
we've
type
done.
of
Yeah,
trucks?
we've leased vehicles, and certainly for for example, snow removal operations. We've leased bobcats and things along those lines. So we've done that in the past. Okay, but as this is ongoing, long term, so it's something that we need, but we could certainly do the analysis. Okay. All right. So the next 4 items really speak back to the general manager's presentation earlier. And was talking about work orders and our vendor work orders, and the focus to drive down our open vendor work orders, which are around 37,000 right now. Most of them being the vast majority paint and floor tile. So item 34, the authorization of a ratification to increase the not to exceed amount of 21 requirement contracts for maintenance painting of apartments. Author is requested to approve the ratification of an increase in the not to exceed amount of 21 requirement contracts awarded to 12 vendors for maintenance painting of apartments by 50% as permitted by the original requirement contracts, which did not require initial board approval, for an initial 1-year term with 1 6-month renewal option in order to fund the continued provision of services for the increased capacity during the contract term. These contracts originally had the 50% in them. These contracts did not originally come to the board. Now that we're exercising the 50% option, it requires us now to present it to the board. Item 36, authorization of a ratification to increase the not to exceed amount of 32 requirement contracts for vinyl composition floor tile in apartments. Authorization is requested to approve the ratification of an increase in the not to exceed amount of the 32 requirement contracts awarded to 15 vendors for vinyl composition floor tile in apartments by 50% as permitted by the original requirement contracts, which did not require initial board approval, for an initial 1-year term with 1 6-month renewal option in order to fund the continued provision of services for the increased capacity during the contract term.
So can I go back to 34 for a minute?
Sure.
Do you have a sense of, say, of the total number of painters that we might engage at any one time? How many work for us, and how many work for NYCHA, how many are contract painters?
Sure. So what I can do is give you kind of overview of our business.
Yeah.
So typically, as Commissioner Gonzalez spoke to about before, when we're doing smaller paint jobs inside apartments, typically 1 or 2 rooms, or finishing off a room after a repair, we do that with our in-house painters. We have
330.
the chair says 330 in-house painters, and then with painting contracts, all of our apartments upon move out, we paint the entire apartment. That's typically done by contract. And also, if we have an occupied apartment that requires the entire apartment to be painted, we use a vendor. We find this to be more cost effective for us. Our paint jobs are not really elaborate or exotic. It's what we call a wraparound job, meaning everything's pretty much the same, the same color.
And the vendors are more cost effective.
Yeah, for painting an entire unit, certainly yes. And what did I want to add? Oh, so the number of contracts. So typically we have a painting contract for each managed by property. And so we have 141 managed by locations. So we'll typically have well over 100 painting contracts to multiple vendors, not to 141, somewhere south of that.
And it's part of Mission Makeover.
Oh yeah, and then we have at 2 of our developments, Wyckoff and LaGuardia, we're actually painting the entire development. We're converting from oil-based paint to water-based paint, which is it's a great thing for the agency, great thing for our residents, great thing for the for the staff. The oil-based paint certainly meets all the regulatory requirements. We anticipate in the future those are going to get more rigorous, and so more difficult for us to to meet. But certainly there's an off-gassing there that can really be an irritant, certainly to folks, and to especially folks that have respiratory issues. And then they're so much easier to work with, the water-based paint, as well as storage requirements. Right now, we're really limited in what we can store as far as oil-based is concerned. And then those rooms, they have to have explosion-proof fixtures, they have to be diked, they have to have they have to be secured. So all the rooms have to be secured, but there are specific requirements to the storage. in those areas.
I want to join the many residents in public housing as well as the seniors and thank you for the change of that paint.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Okay, item number
I'm hoping it's
36.
36, thank you. Authorization is to increase the not to exceed amount of 118 requirement contracts for maintenance painting of apartments. Authorization is requested to approve the increase to not to exceed amount of 118 requirement contracts awarded by 18 vendors for maintenance painting of apartments by 50% as permitted by the original requirement contract, which did not require initial board approval for initial one-year term with 1 6-month renewal option in order to fund the continued provisions of the services for increased capacity during the contract term. Excuse me. Okay, item 37. Authorization is requested to approve an increase in the not to exceed amount of 88 requirement contracts awarded to 28 vendors for vinyl composition floor tile in apartments by 50% as permitted by the original requirement contract, which did not require initial board approval for initial one-year term with 1 6-month renewal option in order to fund the continued provision of services for the increased capacity during contract term. Okay. Item 38, this is a requirement contract for various types of calamine doors. What calamine doors are really, these are our doors for our exterior into our maintenance areas. These are, metal doors, not vandal proof, but vandal resistant. Authorization is requested toward this requirement contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Metal Line Fire Door Company Incorporated, for the not to exceed amount. This requirement contract also provides for a 1-year renewal option to be exercised at the authority's sole discretion. The total contract amount is $1,310,280,000. It is a 3-year contract. Once again, we use as needed when we need to replace doors. We would order the doors, they would drop ship to the location, then we would install them with our staff. Okay. Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Louis Ponce, Senior Vice President of Operations for Support Services. I'm glad Brian had the stamina. I'll be doing 39 and 40. For this one, they're very related. 39 is the rejection for all bids for the requirement contract to provide for the rental and installation of mobile steam and hot water heating system, boilers, heat exchangers, and mobile oil tanks. This contract was to supply temporary heat and hot water in the event of an emergency or a planned renovation when the existing equipment on site is out of commission. The 2 vendors who bid on this contract submitted unusable bids. They were unbalanced and incomplete. This is a cyclical contract the authority always needs. The contract specifications were changed in this round to better address the unit cost for the installation of these devices. Because it's a citywide contract and the installation can vary at the location. Sometimes the boilers were installed close to the building, or sometimes they were 40 or 50 feet away from the building. Because it had one price, we tried to add more unit prices as far as piping, as far as electrical, to make it fairer, so we would pay the appropriate cost to install, no matter where the boiler was installed, as in relation to the building. These contractors who bid on it, their main business is rental of this equipment. It's not really installation. We brought them in, they didn't really understand the bid. They gave us bids that were incomplete and unbalanced. So going forward, we're going to split this contract into 2. We're going to have a rental contract, and we're going to have another contract for installation. We think we could get better pricing and better the appropriate skill set to do this work in a quick and efficient manner for the future.
What happens in the interim, though? I mean, these services would provide emergencies in case of. So, do we have?
That brings me item 40.
Oh, okay.
Item 40 is the existing contract.
Okay.
The only other question is, we're going from temporary to temporary, correct?
These are temporary while the inside boilers are either if there's an emergency and we cannot use them, or if there's a plan. If we know that we're going to replace them within a month, we can install these boilers to continue the service to the residents while we install the boilers in the existing boilers that are.
So somewhere in the future, there's going to be a permanent one put in,
Absolutely.
correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So item number 40 is the authorization to approve a change order. This is the existing contract. It is with Power Mechanical Incorporated. This was approved by a previous board resolution with an initial 2-year term and a 1-year renewal option. This resolution is to fund the an additional 1-year renewal option. So this will be the 4th year of this contract from November 17th, 2016 through November 16 of 2017. Power Mechanical has agreed to hold its bid prices for the extension of this contract. We don't expect that we will use this for a year. We will bid out the contract to replace this. But if there's any issues with the new contract, again, we'd like to have the option to use this for a year. This change order amount is for $1,605,450. The new not to exceed amount will be $4,479,650. And again, this was just a stopgap until we bid out the new contract. I respectfully request authorization to proceed with this change order. Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Nicole Ferrer, Vice President, Real Estate Development. Item number 41. Authorization is requested to submit documents to HUD to obtain the necessary approvals to convert Ocean Bay Bayside Apartments consisting of 1,395 units located at Queens County Block 16002, Lot 1, and Block 16001, Lot 2, from a Section 9 Public Housing Annual Contribution Contract, or otherwise known as an ACC, to a Rentals Assistance Demonstration, or RAD, Section 8 Project-Based Voucher Housing Assistant Payment Contract, otherwise known as a HAP, pursuant to HUD Notice PIH-2012-32. To 2, form corporate affiliates of the authority, which will be used in the organizational structure of the transaction. To 3, enter into 2 99-year leases with the above-mentioned corporate affiliates and affiliates of Richmond Housing Resources, LLC, Catholic Charities Progress of the People's Development Corporation, Ocean Bay Community Development Corporation, and RDC Development, LLC, for Bayside's land and improvements. And 4, use FEMA funds to perform rehabilitation of Bayside in an amount not to exceed Bayside's fixed cap grant amount of $280,689,190,000. At the real estate closing, anticipated on or about December 20th, 2016, the authority will enter into 2 leases of the land and buildings. The first lease will be a 99-year lease of Bayside's buildings and their land footprint to Lessee A. Lessee A will be the tax credit partnership that will enter into a mortgage with the New York State Housing Finance Agency. Second lease will be a 99-year lease of the rest of Bayside's campus to Lessee B. This will not be mortgage. Both leases will be subject to HUD's RAD rules and affordability restrictions. Lessee A will receive a 20-year HAP contract to be administered by the authority's leased housing department, which is required by HUD's RAD rules to be automatically renewing. Substantial rehabilitation of Bayside will be funded through sources including 4% low-income housing tax credits, tax-exempt bonds issued by the state HFA with an accompanying mortgage, and FEMA funding previously awarded to Bayside and administered by the authority's Disaster Recovery Department. The total rehabilitation work performed will be approximately $250 million. It is anticipated that the authority will receive an acquisition payment and a share of the development fee. The acquisition payment will be subject to an appraisal and is anticipated to be up to approximately $50 million and received by the project's permanent loan conversion. All final project financing numbers will be subject to final project underwriting approvals by HUD, the state HFA, and Richmond as the LIHTC investor. The conversion will require the authority or affiliates to enter into contracts at the real estate closing in order to execute the new leasing structure, the corporate entity formation, the rehabilitation funding, the HAP contracts, the resident protections, and any related conversion elements. Any questions? That was a lot. Thank you very much, everybody.
It's been a long time coming.
Yes. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Bob Morano, NYCHA's Chief Information Officer. I'll be presenting board items 42 and 43. Board Item 42, this is requesting authorization to amend an existing agreement to procure additional licenses of Microsoft software for 3,500 skilled trades and maintenance workers. This additional software is part of the rollout of mobile smartphones to staff that will enable them to transact with back-end systems like Maximo, while also having access to NYCHA email and other office products. This project is fundamental to NextGen NYCHA's strategic goal to transform NYCHA to a digital organization that improves customer service and increases efficiencies. Questions? Thank you. Board Item 43. So NYCHA partners with DoIT and other city agencies on several master service agreements to ensure we leverage the city's purchasing power to obtain the lowest prices for goods and services. This board item is mostly a housekeeping request to point all of the Verizon spending from 2007 through September 2016 to a DoIT master service agreement that was originally approved by the board in 2006. It was determined that the Verizon spending that was mostly treated as a utility cost during that time period should have really been associated with this DoIT master service agreement. Therefore, we are requesting, 1, to rescind 4 Verizon board items from 2010, 12, 14, and 15. 2, ratify funds expended on all Verizon spend from January 2007 to September 2016. 3, requesting funding to cover anticipated cost of Verizon lines from October of this year through December 31st, 2016. We are asking for funding only through December because that is when the current DoIT MSA expires. DoIT is expecting to have a new MSA in place by that time, and we will be back in December with a new request for our 2017 spend.
So this is literally to clean up the contract from previous years.
Yes.
Not expending new dollars.
No, the only new ask here is for the money from October through December of this year. That's right.
Questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello again. Item 44 is requesting authorization to approve a ratification of a change order for requirement contract with the Ranty Rentals LLC for the rental, mobilization, demobilization of portable light towers authorized by a previous board resolution earlier this year. It was a 6-month term with a 6-month renewal option. We're looking to extend the contract 2 additional months past the initial 6-month term. This requirement contract was to support a 6-month initiative in conjunction with the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, NYCHA, and Crime Labs, which is a not-for-profit organization to assess the impact of portable lights in our developments on crime levels. All costs for this study have been funded by NYCHA, including the cost of this contract. The data collection for this study was completed in early September, but additional funding was identified by NYCHA, and they want to extend the use of the light towers for a period past the study period. The residents have been very appreciative of the additional temporary lighting while the lights have been in place. Sorry.
One question. Did they settle the issue as to the placement of these towers? If you recall, when we first started to deal with the safety of the residents, a lot were complaining that the lights were too bright and aimed at their bedroom windows and they couldn't get any sleep. And so did we figure out the placement of these towers in order to avoid that particular issue?
Part of the contract was to respond to those issues and to redirect the lights so that they wouldn't be in people's windows or they wouldn't be affecting people's privacy.
Good.
And this is an ongoing study?
The data collection for the study was over in early September.
Okay.
But because they had the additional funding, we wanted to extend it a few more months just to have the light towers in place. The results of the study, I believe, will be in November. Okay. Any questions? Any other questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, 44 items were presented for board approval, and with the item number 33 being withdrawn, we're requesting a motion to approve 43 of the 44
I
items.
make a motion that we approve 43 items.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Motion to adjourn?
I thought we were just amending
No, but you have to
33.
go.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, yep.
Motion.
Second motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. everyone.
Who's reading?
Okay, we're gonna stay for the executive session. So
Hey, that's good.
Yeah, I mean,